Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live session today. We'll be reviewing role based access control with Maestro. So, if you've been following along before the holidays, perhaps you saw us deploy Maestro in a few different ways, both on Windows and on Linux. If you weren't following along for that ride, no problem. You can always catch up by simply downloading the Maestro free trial and doing it in your own environment. We do offer a YouTube deployment playlist, which will get you started in probably less than 30 minutes or so. So go ahead and get that going. And then now that you, of course, have Maestro installed after that, we've connected our DNS and our DHCP services, maybe imported some IPAM information. We'll want to make sure, of course, that we give the proper access to folks. And of course, maybe more importantly, deny the access where we need to. So Maestro uses a pure role-based access control model to do our access management. If I go over to the admin tab, you can see under configuration, we have access management right here with users, groups, and roles. Um, Doing an RBAC model makes it much easier for mid-size and large enterprises, especially, to do access management. So they're not, messing with a ton of different permissions and roles everywhere. Everything's much more consolidated in this role model. And of course, what I mean by like a pure RBAC model is essentially that all permissions are assigned to a particular role, as you can see roles here, and then we assign users and or groups to those roles. So let's jump through the roles a little bit and kind of discuss what we're looking at. So you can see I have some general roles, I have some specific roles, and then I have legacy roles right here. Now, the legacy roles you don't have to worry so much about if you're not already a Maestro user. This is just how we've implemented it so that folks on prior versions are able to upgrade to more current versions without having to redo, their entire access management setup, right? But going back to general and specific roles, so the general roles apply basically system wide. So it could be your entire DNS environment, your entire DHCP environment, or just your entire DDI environment, DNS, DHCP, IPAM, and all of the things under that Maestro umbrella. For specific roles, then those get much more granular. So we're talking about DHCP scopes, we're talking about DNS zones. Now, some of these roles come built into Maestro right away. So you can see like IPAM administrators, IPAM viewers, those are built in, but you can also create your own. So if I want to create a brand new role, I can do that, give it a name and a description, of course, tell it whether it's general or specific. And then I would go ahead and grant permissions through this access menu here. And of course, we don't want you to have to pop in and out of tabs constantly, pop in and out of windows. So we also allow you to add groups and users right here in this window as well. The other thing we can do is create roles from existing roles. So if I wanted to say, select DHCP administrators, give it a different name, and then maybe change some of those roles or change some of the folks in those that are applied to those roles, right? Some of the groups, some of the users that get tagged for those roles. I can do that all right there. If we jump to groups then, what I do want to point out is that we will work with Active Directory, we'll work with Azure AD, and then of course you can just create your own in Maestro. But what you don't want to do obviously is have to recreate the wheel or reinvent the wheel every time. So if you already have all of your groups set up in Active Directory, then all you have to do is go ahead and add an AD group and then give it the exact same name as what you've configured through AD. And then you can configure the roles that get applied to that group, and then it will pull in the users within that group automatically. And of course, you can also create your own Maestro group if for some reason you don't want to go through AD, or maybe you're using some sort of AWS IAM service, different things that we can use here to apply and make everything just real simple, simply managed, right? And then, of course, we have users. You can add users just as you would. What I do want to point out is that you can, everywhere you click, right? Whether we're in users, whether in groups, we're able to kind of consistently create the users, groups, and roles all in this one window. Again, we're avoiding kind of having to pop in and pop out, and thereby avoiding maybe human error. Maybe I click on the wrong group by accident. I'm doing it all in the same window. So it's just much easier, more tenable to manage, right? Now, the other thing I get asked about all the time is, okay, that's great that you can do granular access to DHCP scopes, granular access to DNS zones, but can we get a little more fine grained in our granularity? Now, the problem with this is that once you start trying to assign permissions to, say, a DNS record, imagine how many roles you would have for each DNS record, right? You might have dozens or hundreds or thousands, which is why really no DDI solution allows you to get that fine grained, because actually it becomes less secure. The more and more roles that you have to manage actually creates a security risk in and of itself. But not to worry, we did create something that's going to help you get this kind of fine grained granularity. And this is the idea of DNS workflow. Now, workflow is it's got a lot of elements to it. So workflow helps us with the granularity of access, while also creating an approval workflow, thereby making teams kind of work better together, and hopefully, allowing folks to go to market faster with new streams of revenue, new services, etc. So what workflow looks like is basically if I go into any of my DNS um, zones here, and I want to create a new record. Now, say I'm not an admin coming into this, maybe I am a DNS requester, which of course is a group that's available, a role that's available within Maestro. So here I have access maybe to a particular zone because we've been able to narrow that in that much. But maybe I only have requester privileges to this zone. And that means that I can request to add new records or request to delete maybe records that I don't need anymore. So if I create a new A record, let's say, give it a time to live, and then start to give it an address. Now you notice that once I put in one or two octets, it's able to suggest the ranges that might be applicable to this, right? So if I select a range, I'll go ahead and select this one. It'll pick the next free available IP address for me, so I don't have to worry about that. Um, we can, of course, at Men and Mice, we require that you put an owner name there, and then I have the option to add to request. Now, I also have the option to create now, but that's only because I have administrator privileges. But if I were to just have requester privileges, this would be the only option. I could do several at the same time. Maybe I'm a developer and I'm using a self-service portal to do this, which means that I could bulk add these to my shopping cart. And then the shopping cart allows me to go ahead and make the request officially. I can schedule this request for later maintenance window that I know about, or for some other deadline maybe that I need to meet, and then click submit. Now, I'm just getting this approved request because I am in as an admin right now. But if I were not in as an admin, then I would go to workflow as an approver now. A different person has signed in and is going to this approver under workflow, and then they can click on this request that the requester made, check it, and then either reject or approve it. Now you'll notice that this also comments all along the way. Um, that means that I've got in built-in documentation happening at all parts of the workflow process. So this is, as you can see, how we kind of make it much more fine-grained when it gets to that level of granularity, but it's much more tenable in even an SMB or mid-market, much less a large enterprise, much more tenable, actually much more secure to do it this way. And that's all I have for role-based access today. Thanks everyone for watching. Again, please go ahead and download our free trial. Give it a try yourself, and check out our YouTube playlist deployment tutorials. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll catch you in the next session.